something. It's really my pleasure to follow Kathy, and I think that she's teed up my conversation really well, and probably helped me out by keeping me from having to say a few things about open data and whatnot. But I'm going to talk really only about two things, and hopefully I can find my notes here somewhere. Teresa always gets worried because I don't write anything down. But it keeps her interested because she doesn't know what I'm going to say. And I am just getting over a little bit of a cold, so if I cough, just stay away. But I'm going to talk about two things. One is really the power of open data and collaboration, and kind of talk about an example where the Department of Energy and some other agencies really put open data and data that was available out in the private sector to use in a real-world scenario. And then I have what I think is a pretty exciting announcement about something that the department is going to kick off here today, and also tomorrow out in San Diego. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is really the power of collaboration and open data and whatnot with the experience we had in Superstorm Sandy. And if we can, there you go. And so when Sandy hit, we all had our kind of our plans and everything. And probably the one thing that I thought from my military background I really needed to do was to make sure that Secretary Chu knew that I had accounted for all of my people and all of my contractors. And so I sent him a note about 4 hours after the storm had passed through Virginia, said, hey, all of our feds are accounted for, all of our contractors are accounted for, and we're good to go, the data centers are up, ready to work. And instead of getting, hey, thanks for that, or hey, where's everybody else's report, I got, hey, you got time for a phone call? And so I gave him a ring, and he said, so we have these utility crews, and they're all like up on the New Jersey border and whatnot, and the local law enforcement isn't letting them through because they don't recognize them or don't know that they're allowed to work in these hazardous conditions. Can you create some type of identity app to get them through? I'm like, okay. Thanks. Click. Like, all right. So I called my buddies down in the Office of Electricity Delivery and Energy Reliability, talked with them, called over to the Energy Emergency Support Function desk over that had been stood up over at FEMA, and really didn't require an app. This was not a problem that needed a technical solution. This was just a problem that needed us to acquaint the security and safety desk with the energy restoration desk. They were pretty far apart. They were like on opposite ends of this room or whatever. But we introduced them to each other and said, hey, maybe if a utility guy or gal needs to get access, they could call their dispatcher, and maybe we could have a place where they could call and then get dispatched to the right local law enforcement. So all we really did was create, the old basic phone tree system so that utility dispatchers could contact a single number, then be redirected to the local law enforcement and say, hey, this individual does have this training. They can, we're expected to be there for mutual assistance. But a lot of these are subcontractors. They show up in a pickup truck with a Dominion Power sticker on the side, but this is really Bob's high voltage electricians, So we got through that. So I called the secretary back and said, hey, we got that nailed, okay? And he said, excellent. He said, we have all these generators that FEMA and others have stockpiled, and we have all these gas stations that have gas in the ground but no power. And by the way, we also have gas stations with power that don't have any gas. Can you create some type of online marketplace that would align all of these generators to the people that need them? And oh, by the way, don't forget, we'll need to know which gas stations actually are ready to receive a generator, so we don't have to send an electrician there to go install a plug. And by the way, make sure that we figure out where there's gas and where there isn't. And as you know from the Sandy experience, the electrical outage in the New York area in particular, New York, northern New Jersey, really turned into a gas shortage problem. It wasn't a real shortage problem, but it was effectively a real problem because of the loss of electricity. And so I said, okay, well, this sounds just a little bit harder. And I said, so I'm going to need some help. So Kathy mentioned the Presidential Innovation Fellows, and I said, I need superheroes. I need somebody who's way smarter than me because I know how to call somebody and ask for help, but if anybody wants me to create an Amazon online for generators, it's not going to be very effective, and it'll be very expensive. It'll be just like one of these multi-year programs designed to fail. So I called Todd Park, and I said, hey, Todd, you think I could borrow the PIFs, the Presidential Innovation Fellows, to work on this? And he said, that sounds pretty cool. And if you know Todd, you know he's really high energy and all that, and this really sounded like a great idea. So he sends a blast email out, and literally within an hour, I was on the phone with, I think that class had 17 Presidential Innovation Fellows. I was online with all of them, with the Chief Technology Officer, the Senior Technology Advisor at the time, I think was his title, Ted Okada from FEMA, and Desiree Mattel Anderson from the FEMA staff. And we were online with all 17 of these folks and started chatting, and they were really good about, well, what's the problem statement? Because we want to make sure we're not solving a problem that doesn't exist. And just because the secretary said it's a problem doesn't mean it's an actual problem to the people on the ground. And so we started eliciting some ideas, and we started reaching out through the FEMA Emergency Support Desk to get what were the citizens really looking for. And it turned out they really wanted a lot more things than generators at gas stations. I mean, they wanted to know, are their friends and family okay? You know, by the way, there's an election coming up. How are we going to vote? When are the schools going to open? Where do we get shelter? Where do we get food? Is there a pharmacy that's open? You know, all this other type of stuff. When's the electricity coming back on? We're like, oh, crud, well, this is way more than a stupid generator problem. But the PIFs were really great, and they self-organized. And this was one of those things where if you get really smart people in a room and you say, we want to go west, you know, there's gold out west, they'll take you there. And all they needed was a little bit of strategic direction and connect them to the people that have the problems and the people that have the resources. And this happened, you know, very close to the weekend. I remember that Saturday morning, they had gathered in not only the PIFs, but they had reached out to all their private sector counterparts. And this was really where the bureaucracy of government had completely been taken down. I mean, the president said, no holds barred. We're going to get this solved. We're going to get the people of New York and New Jersey back on their feet. And so we had a phone call, and Desi was leading this thing, and there were like 100 people on this telcon on Saturday morning. And it was really well behaved. Everybody was moving on, and we had divided up into teams that were working on problem definition, on technical solutions, and on deployment, managing, kind of measuring the effectiveness of things. And we'd kind of developed these work streams online, and we were identifying people that were really interested in helping in particular parts of it. And as we finished the first work stream and we got ready to move on to the next one, someone broke into the phone call and said, hey, Desi, I got one question. And she said, yeah, what's that? She goes, who's the leader of that group, that first work stream group? And she said, oh, yeah, good idea. And she said, so who wants to be the leader of this work stream, the problem definition work stream? And there was kind of like silence, and somebody else chimed in and said, why do we need a leader? And it was like this light bulb went on. We were like, holy crap, you're right. Maybe we don't need a leader. And the gal that chimed in said, Desi, what do you need? And she said, well, here's what I'm going to need. I'm going to need to brief the FEMA administrator, Craig Fugate, and he's going to have to brief the president. Here's kind of the time scale, and here's when I'm going to need to know stuff. And she said, I got it. We'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. And that's the way the whole thing ran for 2 weeks. And the thing self-organized, and the power of collaboration of people that had a common goal, a common mission, and had access to knowledge and data and resources were able to do this together. So all this stuff, and we brought in Google, and we worked with Google's crisis map. And one of the most exciting things that we did was I got connected to a gentleman by the name of Wansu Im, who runs Vertices up in it's a geospatial company up in northern New Jersey. And I got connected to him through one of the Presidential Innovation Fellows that was actually a Visa employee. And Wansu said, hey, I've got this group of high school students that we've been doing this mapping, this community mapping work. And since the power went out, I've had them, since they can't go to school, I've had them working on mapping open gas stations. And would you be interested in having them help you? And so we got connected with them, and I probably violated child labor laws or something. But I had 40 high school kids, working for us and working directly with our Presidential Innovation Fellows and with FEMA and with others to do data calls and to reach out to these gas stations. Because what we found is that other than Hess, which is actually a corporate owned, where the stations are owned corporately, is that, in this franchising world where a Citgo or a Shell or a Gulf station isn't necessarily a Citgo, Gulf, or Shell station, it's just Jimmy with a Shell sign. is that we didn't have data. And so they were calling, and we had a call center. We leveraged them. We took the mapping data they were doing in one app, and we converted it to a format that Google could draw off of. And so every time they would load something into the database, it would automatically be moved to FEMA and to their crisis and emergency response geospatial application and directly onto the Google crisis map. And so it was amazing. And then so some weekend day I bought them all pizzas. I called a pizza place and used my credit card to buy them food for it. And that's what it cost me. The secretary sent them a really nice plaque and a nice letter up there and thanked them for their effort. And it was really awesome. But in the end, all those challenges that I talked about, we addressed them. And we addressed them in real time with real-time innovation through the simple power of collaboration and leveraging the data that the government had that was already being fed to FEMA and that information that our private sector partners and colleagues had as well. So I know it can work. And when I afterwards, some of the PIFs that I worked with, Ian Kalin, who was our Department of Energy PIF, Cara DeFrias, who was over at GSA, Carl Mehta from Visa, Nicole Laurie at Health and Human Services, and then the folks from our team, Alice Lippert and Carissa Vandermay from our electricity office and things like that. It was really, really impressive. And afterwards, I was at a post-Sandy meeting up in the White House, and some of the Presidential Innovation Fellows were there, and they were briefing their actual project that they'd been brought in to do. And afterwards, we kind of chatted, and Cara came up to me afterwards. She gives me this great big hug, and I said, "What was that for?" And she says, "Hey, you're just my hero." And I said, "For what?" And she said, "Well, all the Sandy stuff, and we just had such a great time, and we did so much good." I said, "Cara, you all are the heroes in all this. I mean, you did all the work." And she said, "Yeah, but you called us." And so that's the hardest thing, I think, for us as leaders to realize we don't have all the answers, but we have access to the people with the answers and the capabilities. And those are our teams and our colleagues, those support contractors and the people that we work with and liaise with every day. And so, if I learned anything, it was to not be afraid to collaborate. I'm a nuke engineer, okay? Believe me, I already know everything in 10 seconds. My staff knows that. Teresa will tell you, they only get halfway through a sentence and, okay, that's decisions made, next, and move on. But really, really important in the collaboration space. So that's what really brings me to the second piece of my time with you today, and that is to let you know of something that I think is really exciting that actually is being kicked off right here, right now. And that is, and you can go to the next slide, that is the Department of Energy's American Energy Data Challenge. Last year, we're building off of last year's Apps for Energy Challenge, off of last year's Energy Data Palooza that was held at the White House, and off of a lot of the stuff that's been going on in the open data, open government world, and a lot of the stuff that Kathy just spent time talking with us about, as well as the effort that we've had on Green Button, similar to the Blue Button effort to make your health information available to you so that you can put it to your best use. Our effort around Green Button is how do we take consumer energy data and energy usage data and put the power of that information in your hands as a consumer so you can make good energy choices and manage your energy usage at home or at your business. So the first challenge kicks off today. And the first phase of this challenge is the Energy Ideas Challenge. We've got a lot of data out there. We've got quite a few APIs out there, but we know that we can do more. So in this challenge, we're really looking for three things. From the perspective of the people that are looking to use energy data, what is the most valuable data set that we've put out there in your hands today? And how can we enhance it? How can we further exploit it? How can we make that best data set even better? That's part one. Part two is, nice, you got thousands of data sets. Why don't you have this data set? Help us identify what that big data set of value is that isn't made available to you all or to our other private sector partners today. But give us some ideas of why this is valuable, how you would leverage it, what would make it useful for consumers or for business or for starting a new application or developing a new application or that. So that's the second part. And then the third part is, what would be your killer energy app? But you got to kind of tell us a little bit more, like what data is necessary to make that app a reality? And how would that add value to the end consumer? So that's kind of the first challenge. And there's a little bit of money. Nobody's going to get rich off of this, okay? So this is not like a real VC effort here, and probably doesn't even qualify for angel funding. But we've got 10 grand that we're going to put towards prizes for this first phase. That phase is going to run primarily just this month, and we're going to work through that. And then we've got 3 more phases that we're going to do over the course of fiscal year 14. And with the shutdown, the government shutdown, the last phase is actually going to run into the beginning of fiscal year 15. But the second one revolves around Apps for Energy 2. Okay, this builds off of our Apps for Energy that we did earlier in 2013, but really talking about what's the best use out there for some of our DOE-specific APIs. What are the best uses of our consumer green button data? And then, hey, we posted these killer apps that came out of phase 1. Let's see what somebody can do with one of those in the Apps for Energy. Can you take take one of these killer app ideas to the next level? The third one will be energy data by design. Today we take data that's gathered up from systems that weren't designed to generate open data, and we try to force that data to be open, and sometimes that's as much of a challenge as it is for you to find it, to discover it, and to use it. So how do we better design systems? How do we identify the data we want and start to develop systems, not only hardware and software, but our industrial control systems and things like that, so that we're creating data in a format that's readily usable? And then finally, challenge 4 that'll run roughly next July to October is the American Energy Challenge. And this is really about reimagining the future of our energy infrastructure and how data and information really can transform the way that the country and the world uses energy, seeks new energy sources, and really optimizes the use of it. Think of this almost like New Year's Eve in 1880 in Menlo Park, when Thomas Edison threw the switch on DC lighting and said, gas lights are going to be obsolete. Gas futures actually plummeted when he made that claim 6 weeks prior to that. But from that, today's traditional electric grid, if you go look at the models that Edison built, they look a lot like today's grid. If you can imagine the expansion of those in your mind. He was working on DC power, where Westinghouse and Tesla were working on AC power, and we kind of ended up in that era, in the AC power era. So that's the 4th challenge. And it's really exciting for me, for you all to be the first to hear of this. On energy.gov, Pat Hoffman, the Assistant Secretary for Electricity and Energy Reliability, and I have jointly blogged about kicking this off. It's up live now on energy.gov, and Secretary Moniz has a nice recorded YouTube clip there talking about this challenge. So thank you for letting me have a little bit of your time. Thank you to Kathy for teeing up a great topic, and I look forward to seeing your ideas in the American Energy Data Challenge, and look forward to collaborating with each of you in the future. Thanks.